You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, luchacentral.com presents Straight Out of the Bodega with King FatBoy, Papo, Esco.
From the wrestling world to the podcast world, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with your host,
the King FatBoy, Papo, Esco. Yo, you have arrived. Pulled up. Welcome to another edition of Straight Out of the Bodega. I'm your master of ceremonies, the Lucha Thug, the one-man Lucha Gang, El Rey Gordo himself, the King FatBoy, Papo Esco. And this week, just like last week, and just like the week before that, I mean, you could probably go to every single episode, and I might say the same thing. The streetlights are on. So we're gonna take you for a ride through the blocks, back alleys, and street corners of the bodega. We're gonna give you everything you need that's pro wrestling and entertainment. As always, I'm ready. I know you're ready. So have a seat, pour up your favorite drink, and let's ride. Man, how are y'all doing? Now, we both know I can't hear you, but I am in your ear, so go ahead. Tell me how you're doing. I'm interested. I want to know. Me, I'm doing great. I'm in a good mood. Been in a good mood lately. I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now that could sway me the other way and make me feel a little down. But, man, I'm hopeful. I see glimpses of hope. It makes me happy. I guess you could say I'm positive. I'm on that power of positivity hype. You know what I mean? So, Kofi, Xavier, Big E, I think it's time to bring me in. Newest member of the New Day, because I'm on that power of positivity hype. You know what I mean? No? Alright, I'll talk to y'all about it later. We got a great show for you today. Today, we got someone who's a brother of ours, friend of the show, from around my way. Well, make no mistake, he's not built for the blocks of the bodega, but when he's here, I keep him safe. But he did live close by. NXT/WWE Referee Tom Castor is on the show. And I'm excited. I'm excited about this because his story is amazing. He took something from nothing and made it everything. I mean, this is like a storybook ending, all the trials and tribulations in his journey leading to a triumph. And he's living the dream right now. You gotta hear it. Also, this is an exclusive, man. It's his first podcast. First time he ever did a podcast. And I hope it won't be the last, because I feel like more people need to hear his story. But I'm excited that we are the first ones to give it to you. Very excited for you to hear it. Glad he's on the show. We're going to get right to it. I'm not going to waste no more time. But before we do, I got to let you hear the sultry voice of Denise Salcedo and Lucha Central.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a look at all of the great shows available this week on the Lucha Central Podcast Network, where you can always find each show on its own or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show for every show in one easy feed. Monday, Lucha Libre Figures and Facts returns as the crew talks about the history of one of Lucha Libre's most influential personalities, Conan, including an in-depth look at his Toy Biz WCW Slam and Crunch action figure. Tuesday, it's Mass, Mats, and Mayhem as Lucha Underground executive producer and showrunner Eric Van Wagenen is back for part 2 of his interview, where he gets confronted with the number one question on the minds of series fans: will Lucha Underground return? Tune in Tuesday for his answer and a whole lot more. Thursday, on Straight Out of the Bodega, Papo Esco and Gabriel Ramirez are joined by WWE NXT referee Tom Castor, who trained for his career in NorCal and was part of many area promotions, including PWR, before his move to the international stage. The trio talks Tom's incredible journey leading up to his tryout, signing with WWE, and the road to recovery after his gruesome injury where his leg snapped mid-match, but he kept officiating until the end. This is an interview you won't want to miss. Also, Thursday and in Espanol, the #1 Spanish language wrestling podcast in the US, La Mesa de los Márgaros, is all new. And AAA Exótico, Mamba, pulls up a seat at the table. On Friday, we've got one of the top Lucha Libre podcasts on the US iTunes charts, Lucha Central Weekly, and the #1 wrestling podcast in Mexico, Lucha Central Weekly en Español. Get all the latest news on the road to Lucha Libre restarting in Mexico, plus a check-in on the top names in Lucha Libre and US promotions, including WWE and AEW. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, and please be sure to give a rating and review to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
All right, welcome back to Straight Out of the Bodega. I've said it many times before. I'm your master of ceremonies, the King FatBoy, Papo Esco. And today, Gabe, we got a great show.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but I can already feel that this is a great show.
Wait. What do you mean it hasn't happened yet? Are you saying that our shows in the past haven't been great, or are you saying this one's going to be great?
I just keep saying that. I don't know. I'm a humble guy, but I'm going to go ahead and say for the record, I feel like we keep outdoing ourselves every episode.
Okay. Because you can't be like an indie promoter who every show he has, it's the best one ever. Get your tickets now.
All right, I'm going to take a back step. Today on the show, we have a good man, a humble man.
Yes, sir.
He is a referee. He's been a referee for countless years, starting out in the NorCal scene and ending up in NXT/WWE. Our friend of the podcast, Mr. Tom Castor. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. No, none of that. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, and thank you. I can come out here and tell you this is my official debut on podcast. So
It's an exclusive.
Exclusive. Sunday,
We got
Sunday,
the exclusive. You heard it here first. We got the exclusive. First time podcaster, Tom Castor.
And it rhymed.
I rhymed.
He didn't mean it, but
No, I meant that.
Oh, thank you. Look at you. You really are the master of ceremonies right now.
I try to be.
But with all kidding aside, like it really is very cool for me to do my first podcast, and not just with anybody or any Joe Blow with a podcast and a microphone or some kind of phone interview for the radio, but to be able to do it with people who I have a personal connection with, and somebody like Gabe, who was very instrumental in my career and to help me get to where I am today. So to be able to kind of come on here and relive some of my past and my present, where I can see myself going in the future, is very, very cool. So thank you so much, both of you guys, for having
thank
me
you.
on the podcast.
No problem. Thank you. We definitely are excited to get this going. And I want you to have the opportunity to tell your story. So I want to start from the beginning. I want to ask you, when did you fall in love with pro wrestling, and how did that equate into you actually getting into the business?
So that's a great question. It's funny because a lot of people ask me that because I have such an affinity for late 90s wrestling. So, and it's because I feel like whenever you kind of get into wrestling, you pretty much romanticize the era that you grew up in.
Of course, yeah.
So I was 11 years old, and I remember this. And I was able to go back and tell this person this story, and we hadn't spoken in, good Lord, maybe 25 plus years, but I was able to go back once I started working with World Wrestling Entertainment. So I grew up on the south side of San Jose, California. I was 11 years old, and I kind of had an idea of what wrestling was, but I didn't really watch it. I didn't really know it. I vaguely have a memory one night staying up super late on Saturday. I was on the couch, and I was flipping through the channels, and I saw this match between Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy in a steel cage, the big blue cage. It was Saturday Night's Main Event.
Oh.
I didn't know what it was.
Right.
I just sat there and I saw just a little bit of it, but that wasn't enough to get me hooked. And like any child of the 80s, I knew who Hulk Hogan was because he was everywhere. He had cartoons and he was on magazine covers and everything. So I knew who Hulk Hogan was. But I was 11 years old, growing up in South San Jose, and a neighbor that we hung out with all summer long one year who lived 2 doors down, he was super into wrestling. And he had 2 tapes. He had the Royal Rumble 89 and Survivor Series 88.
Okay.
And I remember watching them on his floor one day and asking him, like, hey, can I borrow these tapes to finish them? And I kid you both not, like, once I started watching them once through, I was hooked. And I watched those tapes over and over. I watched them so much, you guys, I never gave them back. I literally still have them at my mom's house in California.
Well, please be kind and rewind.
And I was able to tell this guy that, like, hey, man, like, you're the one who got me addicted to it. So at 11 years old, I watched these 2 pay-per-views, and I was addicted. And then the very first pay-per-view I watched as a fan was Survivor Series 89.
Wow.
And I was like, holy crap, like, this is just the best thing. The characters, the lights, the moves, and these guys look like, Greek gods. And I'm like, what, and I was just hooked on, like, the good versus evil aspect. And then, so I got hooked, I would say, in September of 89. And when WrestleMania 6 happened, Warrior versus Hogan, I told myself that this is what I'm going to do for a living.
Wow.
I don't know how.
That's great.
I don't know what, but I'm going to be in wrestling.
Somehow you're going to make it. Yeah.
Somehow, like, and that was good or bad. I mean, it worked out fine.
Right.
But, like,
It's a great story to tell, right?
Yeah, but like, it could have been very detrimental to my future because I pretty much was just hyper focused on it. And I never
think about it,
gave
Tom.
up.
You could be telling this story working at like a Best Buy and saying, yeah, my first, VHS was in 89 as a kid buys a, NXT DVD, in the now time, you know what I mean? So that story could have gone either way, right? Could have been like, oh, look at a wonderful story where it led up to, or it could have been a story of what could have been. And I think that's the difference between the dreamers and the doers. And I think that's where, you lie in the fact that you told yourself at an early age, I'm going to do this, which a lot of us do. Everyone says when they walk in our doors to be a wrestler, this is my dream. And then a week later they quit, and those dreams somehow became pushed under the bed and never heard about since. And you're one of those special cases where you said it at an early age and look where you're at now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, look where you're at now, man. I mean, you've done so much. Now, I want to get into that. I want to know 2 things. How you got started in the business and how it impacted how that impacted you in the early days. But I got to ask first, when you got started, did you want to be a referee or did you have other aspirations?
No, that's a very good question. So when I had my initial tryout at the Performance Center in September 2014, they made everybody do promos on day 3, even the reps. And I was like, wow, who am I? Right? Like, I don't have, or at least at the time, I didn't feel like I had a story, right? Especially, being a referee.
Right.
So I was like, just really trying to hyper focus on, like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And I was with my roommate, and we were driving around, and we were talking, and he was trying to talk me through what my promo was going to be. And I told him, like, man, I don't know. He's like, there's nothing, like, what about you when you started training? I was like, actually, I wanted to be a wrestler. that was the dream.
Right.
And he was like, oh, well, what happened? And I said, well, circumstances, blah, blah, blah. But I said, I didn't dream of being the ref because growing up as a kid, I was the champion of the living room. And right then and there, he's like, there it is. Champion of the living room. You got to tell that story. And that's a great line. And that's the truth. Growing up as a kid, watching Warrior Hogan, and I was such a big fan of the heels. I was really into Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Arn Anderson, Stunning Steve Austin. So I was always into these really great technicians and these really good workers, and that's what I saw myself being. And so in summer of 2000, I signed up for All Pro Wrestling Boot Camp in Hayward, California, run by the late Roland Alexander.
What year was that?
2000.
2000.
Summer of 2000, and I signed up to be a referee. I signed up to be a wrestler, and I did the bumps from, I want to say, August through October, because it was definitely in the fall. I remember that. And, I was doing it, and I remember one day I was in line, and there was a huge class too, you guys. Gabe, what was it like? It was over 40, I believe.
Well, was this during the Beyond the Mat era?
Yes.
Yeah, because during the Beyond the Mat era, I'm not going to lie. I remember when we used to have our meetings, we go in there, and Papo, you know how we have our whiteboard at the academy? Roland had about one of those, but those are the large ones that can only go on the wall, not as big as ours. But he had the largest one you can go on the wall. And I remember he used to have the same way I have it now, the list and so on. When Tom is discussing that, he literally had to. I think there were some classes that had 46 people in it, and we had to have some in the ring, some on the floor watching, some doing cardio on the outside. You know what I mean? It was that Beyond the Mat era is what literally
exploded.
It was
business,
huge.
Yeah.
It was huge.
So
it's a good problem to have. So I wish I had it.
You will. Just wait for the next huge, crazy boom.
I'm waiting for Beyond the Mat 2 to come out, you know what I mean? And we'll see how that pans out.
You're gonna be in it then. I
just gotta make sure they don't shoot me from the bottom up, and I don't have a Diet Coke can on my desk.
That's awesome.
So Tom, you started out wanting to be a wrestler. You spent about a couple months taking bumps, and
then at
one point did you realize? Well,
yes,
let me read.
Yeah. So I was in class sometime in the fall. I want to say October, right after Halloween, and I was in line, and that was the very first time that I realized that I was looking up at everybody. So like sometimes you get so entrenched and so blinded by your goals and your dreams that you forget to look around. And that moment, I'll never forget it. I was in line. I looked up to my left. I looked up to my right. I looked at the line. I realized I'm the smallest guy here. Right? And even though I was like 21 or 22 at the time, like my brain started turning like, man, I'm 5'4". Like all of a sudden, I don't know how it took this long, my entire adolescence and college, it took me to realize that I'm very short.
Well, I mean, depends on who your opponents were in the King in the Living Room matches, right?
Well, it was my brother. He was only an inch. He only had an inch on me, and I beat that dude all the time.
There you go.
But, so I realized what you guys, or what I want the people listening to understand was, in 2000, the landscape of professional wrestling, sports entertainment was very different. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of 5'4" guys running around main eventing and making a living at the business. It was a different era.
Yeah.
And
Land of the Giants.
And me being, looking down the barrel of life and being like, well, what if I'm doing all this and I break my body in half and I can't, play with my kids and I can't have a functional life when I'm in my 30s or my 40s? Like what is the probability of me making it in the big companies at 5'4"? Like, unless you're Rey Mysterio, right? I mean, and I know I'm not, because I'm scared to jump off the ring apron, right?
But you know what, though? In that time frame, I remember that every time someone would say, "Oh, he's too small," they would always use Rey Mysterio. But look at Rey Mysterio. But he was the only one.
And
it was it was impossible to say, "Oh, but look at Rey Mysterio."
Rey Mysterio
and who else?
is amazing.
And who else? Who's the other guy?
Rey Mysterio is still doing it because there is only one Rey Mysterio. I mean, truly, the guy is a phenomenon in the business, and so much respect for him and what he does. So that's when I realized right then and there, like, this is my likelihood of making it is very, very, very small. So I don't know if this journey is worth traveling at this point now, which was devastating and a huge blow to my confidence and my outlook on life at the time, because I built myself up literally from 12 years old to now
to this point, right?
Having this one goal, this one dream, and then one day realizing, like, hey, this is almost near impossible given the genetics I have, and the genetics I just didn't realize I was playing with at the time.
But were you having problems with bumps? Were you having problem with any of that?
No,
or was it just more of a size thing that you looked up and said, it's not me?
It was like, everybody was very complimentary of my bumps, and everybody was like, man, you're not bad, And
was that before or after you paid your monthly gym dues?
Well, I was still paying them for a long time.
That's why your bumps are so good. You haven't been done paying.
But so what happened? What happened was the transition happened because I walked into the office one day to talk to Donovan Morgan, who was one of my 3 trainers, and Donovan, for some unknown reason to this day, took a liking to me. And if you know Donovan, he wasn't the most friendly guy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the most approachable guy. Mm-hmm. But if he liked you, and he took care of you. So he, for some reason, had a fondness of me. So when I went in, I explained my situation. He looked up at me and he said, you ever thought about being a ref? And I was like, no, because who thinks that? That's no one's goal, right? Or at least I didn't think it was. And so I told him, I never really thought about that, sir. And he's like, well, here's the thing. I think you look like a ref. And I think you'd be a really good ref because I know one thing about you. You love wrestling. I was like, well, okay. And he's like, so do me a favor. Don't walk away. Don't say no right now. Go home. Think about it. And in a few days, give me a call back. I said, oh, okay, I'll do that. So I went home. Sorry, go on.
I was saying, now you mentioned that you had 3 trainers, right? Donovan Morgan being
Mike Modest, and Vinny Massaro.
Okay. And then you went home, you thought about it.
2 out of 3 is not bad.
Come on, man.
Be nice. So I went home and I thought about it for a few days, and I came to the conclusion, like, what the hell? Why not? I said, and I vividly remember this, I'm going to do it for like a year. And it's going to be a great story to tell my kids one day that I did this for like a year, right? That I refereed pro wrestling matches for, this company in California, and, I'll have some fond memories. And so...
Who trained you as a referee?
It was a weird hodgepodge, to be honest with you. Like, I got a little bit from a local referee named Max Marquez.
Absolutely.
Who kind of came in and gave me some stuff. There was another guy that a little bit of, depending on who you talk to, Jimmy Rip.
So you know what? He gets a bad rap because
he was always very nice. He was very nice to me.
I think he just loved wrestling so much he tried too hard. But he was a very good ref, and I think at that point in time, Tom, when you were reffing, we had a long list of very good refs, and I think I remember Roland being, using that as one of his things because it was very rare to have refs that were any good. Because for the most part, on the indie scene, you just throw anyone with a shirt on and you call them a ref, and we actually had a good cast of refs with Max Marquez being one. I think Jimmy Rip, yourself. And a few others that I don't want to go into, but like you joined a core of like a good core of ref at that point in time.
Yeah, I was very lucky, and for me, like, so when I first went to APW, I went to a Gym Wars, and that Gym Wars in 1997 that I went to was the very first independent wrestling show I'd ever been to.
Oh, like, really?
I had only been indoctrinated into television wrestling. Like, it was either WCW, WWE, ECW. Like, I didn't know independent wrestling existed in my backyard. I didn't know it was down the street in Hayward. So when I went, the referee in the ring, through all the times once I started going on a regular basis to watch All Pro Wrestling Live, was Max Marquez. So for me, being new into the business and coming in and being trained by the guy I watched, I thought was such a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
Like here I used to spend money to watch you ref, and now you're teaching me. I mean, I was blown away at the time, and he was a very nice man and very knowledgeable, good trainer. Same thing with Jimmy Rip. And what was great was Vinny Mazzaro was a referee, so he gave me feedback and was able to kind of coach me along in that aspect as well. So,
well, Vinny, man, I tell you what, Vinny's remembered for doing a lot of different stuff in wrestling, from hardcore to being little Dick Grimes and what have you. And I know he probably just jumped out of his car when he hears this, but as a referee, Vinny was, when he was a referee, what made him stand out, no one really noticed how good of a ref he was because he was a good ref, but he took a bumping ref to a different level.
Yeah, he did.
Oh my goodness. And I remember Modest and everyone would love the fact that they had Vinny in there because they wanted to just throw his ass around the ring. And Vinny was like, I'll take it. Oh, head and arm? I'll take it. And we're like, oh my God, Vinny, like you can't bump every match. You got to come back out. Oh, I don't care. And that's where you had little Dick Grimes evolve, because you had Vinny the referee getting killed in a match, and he had to run to the back, come right back and get dressed to be little Dick Grimes, and then get his ass handed to him again because he tagged with Vic Grimes. So, you definitely were in a spectrum where you learned from all aspects.
Yes.
But with that being said, as a referee, learning the wrestling portion, typically when you do refereeing, it helps you be a ref first to expand your wrestling. But in your case, you went from wrestling to referee. Did the bumping or anything you had in your early training expand your referee?
I would say the bumping that I did definitely helped. It gave me an appreciation for what the athletes put themselves through. And I understood that. So at a very early stage in my career, I can say that I understood the safety and the health and the well-being of the performers. I feel much faster than if I had just been some guy that walked into becoming a referee and been like, what is this? Did that really hurt? So, it gave me an appreciation to be like, hey, my job isn't just to count. My job is to make sure that everybody is safe and okay, and we can all get up and walk out on our own. That's it.
Well, Tom, you said something there that struck me. You said, as opposed to someone who's just coming into refereeing and saying, hey, I'm going to be a referee. Now let's talk about that for a second. How soon before you actually were able to get in the ring and apply the training in the ring as a referee? Now, I know for us, and I speak specifically about Pro Wrestling Revolution Training Academy, so all I know how strict Gabe is with the training of the referees, and he doesn't just throw anyone in the ring, and leave them to the wolves. He makes sure that they have at least the fundamentals and a good idea of how a match is supposed to be structured. How was your training? How long was it before they allowed you to get into the ring and actually do it?
Oh shit, we're going way back in the late 19. I want to say, honestly, I don't think it was very long, maybe a month at the most. And I can say this, I do vividly remember.
Well, great, Tom. Now they're going to bitch at me for making them wait long.
Well, this is All Pro Wrestling, not Pro Wrestling Revolution. Two different schools, all right? But what happened so All Pro Wrestling was running garage shows back in 97 where they were charging people at the door, which probably wasn't legal at the time.
No, it never was legal. I mean,
so at some point between the time I stopped going and started getting ready to go in to be a trainee, that stopped. So once I started training, they came up with this concept, they being like Roland, Donovan, and all, of having what they called light shows.
Light shows.
So what we would do is we would close the garage door. We would have a show, but it was only for friends and family.
Yeah.
And then the other trainees had to come out and watch. So I was doing a show sometimes in front of 5 people. So even if I messed up and I know I did what. So even if I messed up,
Come with the
I'm
story.
just trying to make my point. Even if I
Him.
messed up, it wasn't in front of a whole lot of people. But there was a very good wrestler and a sweet human being who I miss to this day. Who was very much in my corner early in my career. A man named Bison Mark Smith.
Absolutely.
God bless him.
That guy was one of a kind, I swear.
We were in a match at one of these light shows, and he came into the ring illegally. It was a tag match, I remember this. He came in illegally, and he crossed probably halfway through the ring. So he was like past the halfway point of the ring.
Uh-huh.
And I turned around, and I literally stuck my head and my body, or my arms around his waist, and I manhandled him to the other side. So for the viewers, I'm 5'4" and probably $150 at the time, and Bison Smith is like 6'3", 4", and he's easily almost 300.
Yes, yeah, easily.
So I do remember them being like, "Hey, maybe don't push him across the room."
But you know what's funny though, that shows Bison's character as well, because Bison was just a big gentle giant, and as crazy and he looked later on in his years with the mohawk and with Noah and so on. If you knew Mark, that guy was like so gentle, and that's probably why he let you manhandle his ass. He was like, well, shit, what do I do? And like, what are we both doing in here? Yeah. Those light shows were a huge learning experience for everybody.
So to that point, Papo, like, maybe I shouldn't have been in the ring that early, but at least it was in an atmosphere and it was in an environment where it was conducive. You could learn. It was conducive to learning, not ruining something that a large amount of paying fans were in attendance for. And I feel like through those, I started kind of getting my reps. And then by the time I started doing all pro wrestling shows, mostly in Vallejo, do you remember what was the area in Vallejo?
So in the era, Tom, in Papo, the era where Tom is talking about, when he was coming to shows, is what we called gym wars. And then by the time Tom came back to sign up, gym wars were shut down for fire violations and so on. Roland literally had built like an apartment complex in the gym. It was like Melrose Place up in there, man. He had room after room after room, and I mean, he wasn't doing anything to hurt nobody. He was doing, I'm sure there's people doing worse in that area, but Roland had gotten into some situations with online fans that took a disliking to him, and it got to a point where that gentleman called the fire marshal and made up a bunch of stories that were not true. But in essence, it got the fire marshal out there, and when he was out there, then he saw what was there. He couldn't look the other way, and so they had to take everything down, pay all these fines, and then they were marked down as if you did any more shows, it was over. So for the longest time, when there was no gym wars, there was quote-unquote light shows, and he's right, it was like 5, 6, 7 fans. But that forced Roland to find some shows, so which led to what he's talking about now is there was a lot of soccer arenas that were located in Galt, Vallejo, and other parts of Northern California. But we only ever did was Vallejo, and we did
Galt.
3 Galts max, which was the first. One was the first King of Indies, and then maybe 2 shows before that, and then after that, we never went back, and all we did was Vallejo at Mare Island.
Mare Island, that's what it was called. Thank you. Yeah, I remember that being. Again, here we go. So not knowing everything and being super green, I remember being booked on one of those Mare Island shows. And I want to say it was one of the first ones. And I, for some reason, thought it would be a good idea if I invited my friend and his girlfriend, and I would just ride with them to the show.
Were you late?
But, well, late doesn't even begin to explain it. The matches are about to start. And I literally walk up, and I was like, I didn't recognize who was at the door. I'm like, I'm reffing this. And they're like, oh, come in, And then I remember going, and I must have been Donovan or something saw me. I was like, oh, hey, sorry I'm late. And he's like, oh, and no one yelled at me. Like, I didn't get in trouble. I was literally there as the bells getting in the ring. And I get my matches. I don't even remember what they are now, but just being so green and not knowing and having to learn kind of on the spot and like understanding that is just not acceptable. Like you're supposed to be there early and help out. And, I just kind of just waltzed into my first like show in front of people and not big time in my brain. I was just, but it was just an interesting time. Like I said, like coming in, wanting to be a wrestler, transitioning to referee, not really knowing a lot about refereeing, but jumping into the ring and doing shows in front of 5 people, then getting booked on like outside venue shows and not knowing the decorum or like the rules of getting there. Like it was such a weird whirlwind for me, and still being not super smart to the business or understanding like hierarchies or like what's my place in the locker room and that like it was trial by fire. Like I was just learning as I go. I'd make a mistake, don't do it again.
They're not gonna yell at me, who cares?
Right, and I feel like a lot of times it's like that. I mean, I credit Gabe for training me, and I will always do so whether he wants me to or not. And I know when he told me it was time to go in the ring and do it, I wasn't ready. He said I was ready, and what I know now, thinking back, is you're never really ready to get into the ring. You can get all the training that you want, but once you get in there, all that training is not going to be applied unless you start clicking, unless the fireworks start going off. So I want to talk about, Tom, some of the matches that you had throughout, getting your reps in and getting the experience that kind of made things click for you, that kind of had the fireworks going off and just allowed you to see pro wrestling in a different perspective.
Man, that's there's so I wish I would have done more writing down of matches, or at least grabbing like flyers or posters to help me remember some of the stuff that I did, because I mean this October is going to mark 20 years for me doing this, and it's when I thank you, when I look back at my like first 5-6 years, they're like a blur, and I mean obviously there's like pivotal moments that I remember, like I remember Christopher Daniels versus Mike Modest in Cloverdale. Is it Cloverdale?
Yeah, it was Cloverdale. Yeah, and it
was sold out. I remember there was people.
Yeah, that was it was insane. That building was really cool because they had a second deck as well.
I remember getting in the ring that day, and for my first match, I don't remember what I did that night first, but I remember just looking up and thinking, man, it doesn't get better than this. So like it was unreal to me, like all these people. And I remember Christopher Daniels and Mike Modest doing this match that was very intricate, and there's a lot of like roll-ups, false finishes, fish out of water, like just a lot of innovative stuff, especially for 2001. And and seeing like that opened my eyes. That match I remember opened my eyes a bit to like, oh wow, there's a lot to this. And then I remember, I mean, I know a lot of people talk about it. King of Indies 2. I remember doing Doug Williams versus Daniel Bryan.
I still think that was probably the best match of the whole tournament.
I do too. It was probably the most physical.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the ring for that match, and I can honestly say that after that match is when I felt like, hey, I think I could do this for a living, if that's possible. Like, I didn't know how, but that was a year into the business for me, and everything else was just kind of like figuring things out. But in that match, in that venue, on that night, I didn't have to think. You know what I mean? Like, I just reacted.
That's so funny you say that. That's so funny you say
reacted, that. And I remember just leaving that match thinking, man, that match was unreal. These two gentlemen just left it in the ring, and if there's a way I could do this for a living, then damn it, I'm going to. I don't know how, and so those two matches stick out to me. Then I did, which sounds crazy even to this day, but I refereed 3 matches for Misawa in the United States of America. He came here 3 times, and I was fortunate enough to be the referee in all 3 of his matches, and being in a ring with such a legend, and it was Like, I didn't understand why I was in the ring the first time in the ring. Okay, so I remember the first time I refereed with him, he had his entrance, his music played, and I was like, this is insane. And he comes in the ring, and I forget who he locks up first with. If it was either Doug Williams or Vinny, I don't remember.
It was Vinny.
Was it Vinny?
Yeah.
And I remember, I ring the bell, and they lock up, and I think they go to the rope. But I remember them locking up, and me thinking like, wow. And then I realized, like, oh, I gotta get him, because I was just so in the moment and so in awe. And
go, hey, ref, count, do something.
I know, I totally just spaced out and was just like in awe of the moment. And so those types of things, and then I don't know, like just building relationships with certain people in the area, and growing friendships with people and working with those people. Building that relationship in the ring and outside the ring allowed me to learn more. So throughout the years, I felt like I was accumulating more and more knowledge, not just about what a referee is supposed to do, but like what a match should be, like structure-wise and psychology and selling and, all that stuff. So like, I'm sorry, go on.
So Tom, just going back to Masawa, going back to Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, going back to Doug Williams, would you say that with reference to the fireworks going off and actually things starting to click, I've always been of the impression that you're never going to get any better unless you're in the ring with someone better than you. So with these guys, not, I don't want to say better than you, but, with more experience, maybe more insight on the inner workings and how to actually be in the ring. Would you say that helped you kind of jumpstart all the things that were going on in your head to become a better wrestler?
I came into the business at a weird time, like it was like the cusp of the future without anybody knowing it. And I'm getting in the ring with guys like Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe and a very young Prototype and
and you have someone who's a major part of WWE and Adam Pearce.
Oh, Adam Pearce was in and out of All Pro Wrestling. I got to work with him. Nigel McGuinness, like Frankie Kazarian. I'm working with all these talents that.
James Watkins,
Well, almost everybody, but yeah.
Shout out to James Watkins,
who was always nice to me, Gabe. All right, like let's not throw stones. He's a nice man. But you're absolutely right. I like in those scenarios with guys who were that good, you have to be able to be at that level, and if you're not, you're going to have to get there. So definitely, and
wow.
Just, it's an old adage, and it's been said time and time again, but I'll never forget it. And, I still hear it to this day, echoing the hallways at the WWE Performance Center, and it's true. Keep your mouth shut and your ears open. And I can tell you, being in the locker room with so many, at that time, already, established veteran guys who were making waves in the business and just standing back, not saying anything, but just listening to everybody talk, listening to how they put their matches together, listening to them when they would recite it back to me and telling me where they need me to be. I mean, you're going to get better. But you got to want to get better too. I could have been very much in the, vein of like, oh, okay, cool. I'll see you out there. But like, I wanted to know. I wanted to be somebody that they could depend on. And I wanted to be reliable, and because I was also under the type of impression that I'm a reflection of my trainers and I didn't want them to look bad. So I held myself to a higher standard, I think. And I just really wanted to learn. And like you said, Papo, like the best thing anybody can do is get in the ring, whether it's you're a referee, wrestler, manager. If you want to get better at your craft, the only way to do it, in my opinion, is to get in the ring with people who are better than you, because it's going to allow you to learn, grow, and ascend to another level.
Yep.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Gabe.
Yes, sir.
With all the experience that he's gathering, I know you got to know him in APW, which is more than likely why you decided you wanted to start booking him in Pro Wrestling Revolution. When did you see something special in Tom, and how detrimental was things like APW and all that work was it for him to actually come to Pro Wrestling Revolution?
Well, first off, I still remember him not doing ring crew when he debuted. So, yeah,
superstar.
Shout out to Tom and his friends for being late, not doing ring crew with us.
But tell you what, I'm going to fly back and build your ring one time.
Yeah, you're going to come back during COVID. Thanks, bro. Yeah, I appreciate the ring crew. But I'll be honest, Tom was pretty much blended in the beginning because he was not in any high-profile matches. He was doing the smaller stuff because he was brand new, right? So, I mean, I knew him, but after King of Indies or during King of Indies, you can see he blossomed. You can definitely see that he went from a guy being on the APW roster and being used in King of Indies. And then when he was done, we're like, holy shit. Like, where did he come from? Like, what snapped? Because everyone in wrestling, whether it be referee, manager, anything, the light bulb at some point goes off. I get it. And just like you said earlier, and I tell my students all the time, when you start doing wrestling, whatever you do, and you start doing it without thinking, that's when you got it. That's when you go, oh shit, I got it. And then you got to run with it. So after King of Indies, you knew that, he was on point. But unfortunately, not too much longer after that, we stopped seeing Tom Castor. Tom Castor took a small hiatus. Yes, he did.
You disappeared, huh?
But it wasn't really anything on the negative. It's something that everyone had to decide to do something. It wasn't bad. I had no ill feelings towards him or anyone that I was close with in that scenario. But when I got the opportunity to work with Tom again at APW, when I had the book and I was dealing with all that stuff, that's when I saw a different side of Tom. So earlier on, I knew who Tom was because we all worked together. But once I ran into Tom and reconnected when he came back from his hiatus, that's why I was like, holy shit, this guy he's a third wrestler in this ring. It got to a point where I knew that if I had something complicated, and trust me, between myself, Jason Detters, and Roland Booking, we have the most overbooked, dramatized, matches, but I knew Tom could guide us through and get the point over. And it got to a point where in all the matches that I was booking, that included Claudio, that included Fergal Devitt, Machine Gun Carl Anderson, all kinds of talent that Rocky Romero, TJ Perkins, everyone that I would bring in that came through our doors from Japan or high profile, I had to have Tom in there because if I put a rookie in there, I'm not saying he wouldn't do good, but it wouldn't make that match have that high profile because Tom was so underrated. And Tom was in a situation where he was not just a guy who was a beginner, who you were teaching the ropes, who wanted to be a wrestler. Tom was a full-on referee, general, matchmaker, booker. Some wrestlers would get lost. He would remind them what the spot was. If the spot didn't make sense, he would gear them back to where it needed to make sense. And it got towards a point where when I left and started Revolution, I remember I called him. And I used to be a Marcom at SanDisk, and I called Tom, and Tom says, hey, what's going on? You want to talk to me? I was like, yeah, bro, I'm leaving APW. What? Oh, I said, yeah, but I want you to come with me. Oh, okay, cool. Because I knew that I had to have with him. But once he was with me at Revolution, I can tell you that I gave Tom every absolute match that I have high profile. He refereed Jushin Lager for me. I remember Blue Demon at a point would tell me in Spanish, dame el peloncito. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll get you, Tom, don't worry. Because Demon would always want to have Tom when he had his feud with Oliver John. And so he would tell me, having that, that little ref, he called him the bald guy, el peloncito. He's like, every time I have the guy in the ring, oh, man, easy money. And it got to a point where many may not know, but Tom also was a booker for me. And I gave him the book, and he would matchmake, and he would do he would book the talent, and I think he did it for about a year before he decided just to. Once he saw how much drama it was,
there's a lot of it. There's a lot of
it. He decided to go in a different direction. He also was a head trainer for referees. He trained, partially helped me train textbook Alex Chang, who's one of the referees now, who's incredible, and Alex helped with that. And with Tom's training, Alex has extended Tom's training over to who he trains.
I trained your daughter.
Absolutely. I remember my daughter was like, "Oh, Tom, my training is great." And without saying a name, we were at a show one time, and we were in the car. She goes, "Dad, one of the referees told me he didn't like something I did." I go, "What? Which one?" And she tells me, and I say, "Oh, man," I go, "make sure you tell Tom when you see him in class." So she tells Tom, so-and-so, you tell that I never saw Tom so passionate about someone questioning,
Fired up.
I'll tell you what it was. It was a slide over the counting on the knee. And I'm just like Tom. I've never been a fan of the referee counting on his knee. I've always felt sliding gave you that big, you know what I mean? And I remember Tom going, "No, you tell that guy to come talk to me. I'm his trainer," because Tom was old school. Everything Tom was talking about that he was broken into with the old school mentality, that's the same thing the same way I was broke off. Whether it was good or bad, we were taught, eyes open, ears open, mouth shut. No matter what you heard, what you saw, you just learn and go on. And if you spoke out of turn, you pretty much got bitch slapped. And that's the mentality we were raised in, broken into. And for the most part, I carried it over for Revolution, filtered out what I thought was right and wrong. And Tom did the same. And I trusted Tom with the book. I trusted Tom with the highest profile matches ever. I would try to get Tom booked anywhere and everywhere. I'm raised to get him bookings. I can actually tell you it's very uncommon. I remember when I called Tom, he was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah." We did a couple shows up in Oklahoma. And I called Tom. I said, "Tom, I need you to ref these shows out here." He goes, "Brother, I can't afford a flight out there." I was like, "No, Tom, I'm flying you out there." "Shut up." I was like, "Brother, I'm flying you out there. I need you. I need to have a ref who's going to be there with me, can help me do so many things." And I flew Tom. I remember Tom showed up all G'd out with his Starbucks, and he was ready to go. And I know to this day, I can't think of another ref that I actually said, "Hey, I'm going to pay you to come in." I've always had homegrown talent, but Tom has always been a breath of fresh air. And I'm not surprised where he's at. Every time people would ask, I'd always say Tom Castor. I remember when we did King of Indies in 2015, that's where Papo ran into Revolution. They asked me, I remember Gabe Sapolsky and Sal were looking for a ref, but they kept telling me, "It has to be a good ref." I'm like, "I got it. I got your ref. Are you sure?" I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I got it. It just can't be a no." "Oh my God, dude, would you just let me freaking give you the ref? Don't pay him. I'll pay him. If he sucks, I'll pay him. If you like him, pay him. Just give him one freaking match." And I missed Tom's match, by the way, and I find him in the locker room. I go, "Brother, how'd it go?" "Oh yeah, I'm booked the rest of the weekend." And that was it. Tom finally got to show different people besides California per se that go, "Oh shit, there's a really good ref out there," which is very unheard of. Very unheard of.
Now, Tom, man, so much experience. 2015, like Gabe said, is when I first saw you, King of Indie. I mean, I'm sorry, the fairground shows. WrestleMania weekend and everything like that involved. But 1 year earlier, in 2014, right? You had gotten a tryout.
I did, and WWE. Man, that was. I still get goosebumps and emotional when I think about it. So I had been trying to get a tryout for, I want to say, 2 years prior to that.
Yeah,
and it was a consistent set of emails sent over like the course. I think once a quarter. I would always follow up, and there's just no opportunities at the time, which I understood. And I would just always thank the company, and I would tell them, I will, touch base with you again in the future, and thank you so much for your time. And I just kept doing it, and I just kept doing it, and I just kept doing it. And then I remember one day I was at my job. I was working as an asset coordinator for a Google warehouse out in like the downtown San Jose area. And I was at my desk, and I was just routine. It was mid-afternoon. I had some sheets I had to run outside to give to the warehouse workers for some orders, and my phone went off. And as you all, you know, on your phone, you can see like the first few lines of whatever's coming in, right? And I had my work in one hand and my phone in the other, and I'm looking, and it said WWE Recruit, and it said, "Hey, your name's come across our desk," and I was like, "What?" And so it worked, and so in 2014, I went and did a 3-day tryout at the Performance Center, and it was the most unreal, eye-opening, surreal moment of my life because, 2015, I was already 2014, I was already 14 years in the business, and I think I was 36 at the time. So it was, I was a little older, and I just thought, man, this is great. This is what I just want to be seen. That's all I want to do. I'm not looking to land the job. I just want them to know I exist. Because I understand, referees,
right.
they're needed when there's a need, right? Like, you don't need to stockpile referees,
It's like a union job, right? You're waiting for the old guy to finally retire, so the next guy comes in.
You just wait for the need, right? And you just gotta be ready for when the opportunity presents itself. So I went there 3 days, and in my class was, a couple other guys. Montez Ford was in my class, and
a very skinny
Nick was with me.
Nick, right?
He did great too, and it was just like I know it sounds cliche, but the amount of things I learned in 3 days, that alone was worth every second of every minute and every drop of sweat during those 3 days. To walk away with that knowledge that is priceless, and
so when you were leaving, Tom, when you finished, did you think at one point, what, this is it? If I don't get a call back, I reach the pinnacle. I'm done. If they don't call me, I gotta look. That kid who's watching, Survivor Series '89 had come full circle at that point. Did you feel that was it?
So I remember the last day. The match is concluded. Okay, so I remember doing my match. I don't remember who was in it. I think Rich Swann was in my tryout match. I think it's all a blur now because I was already like I was a huge stress ball that day, and so there was 4 referees at that tryout, and I was the 4th ref to do my match. So all 3 others had already gone. So in the meantime, I'm just getting more nervous and more nervous and more nervous to the point where I'm just a wreck, right? So I remember I got in the ring for the tryout match, and I ring the bell, and Drake was out there, Drake Warts, and he was doing the time, I believe, or he was doing camera or something. He was there, and I said, "Ring the bell," and he rang it, and I instantly blew up standing there. Because I was so nervous. After, real quick.
Nerves will do it to you, man.
Well,
Nerves will blow you up
quick. He's nervous all the time.
So
that is true.
Everything, Canyon talked to the group and told us all, like, hey, it was a great 3 days. We saw a lot of really good things from a lot of you, and the emails would be coming out. Yes, no, maybe. But just, thank you all for your time, and just know that, some of you, this, is maybe the last time you're going to walk through the doors, and for others, it may not, right? And I just remember standing there and thinking, I told myself that is not the last time I'm walking through those doors. It is not. And I promised myself,
it wasn't.
yeah.
It wasn't.
I promised myself it wasn't going to be, and I did what I felt I had to do to make my dream a reality, which is what we all want,
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all you can do. I mean, you definitely went for yours. You took a chance on yourself, and you even took a bigger chance on yourself. When did you decide, you know what, I'm not done. I really want to make a go at this. WWE is not seeing the last of me. I'm gonna pick up my family and I'm gonna
So
move
that
out to
conversation, once we got we saw you and great job, but there's just not an opportunity for you right now, which, I was like, cool, but at least they know me, I'm not in any way, shape, or form upset. Like, I'm just glad I was able to get into the performance center and now, like, I'm kind of in, the mix, right? So It must have been early 2015, to be honest with you, and it wasn't even my idea. It was my wife's idea. She put the idea in my head saying, like, hey, like, do you think if something were to open up and there was an opportunity, do you feel like if we lived in Orlando, it would be a benefit? And I just kind of like half-heartedly said, well, it wouldn't hurt. Like, I mean, I imagine, right? I imagine it would be a good thing, And so she went behind my back and applied for universities out there to get scholarships for, so that she could go out there and go to school and claim.
Look at that.
And
That's a
she
support system, man.
used
That's a
it as
support
the
system.
excuse to move there because she got accepted with a full scholarship, right? So she ended up getting one. And she's like, hey, so I applied to this university, Stetson. I said, okay. And she's like, it's like right outside of Orlando. I said, well, that's good. Like, well, when are you going to find out? She's like, well, I got accepted and I got a scholarship. I said, what? She's like, you want to move to Orlando? And I was like, okay, like, if we're going to do this, let's do it. Right. Cause, the one thing I learned most about moving and uprooting yourself to chase something is sometimes you have to do that. I feel like, if you stay stationary too long, you kind of just become complacent with kind of where you're at. Not saying that complacency is bad. I'm not saying where you're at is bad. I'm just saying you kind of this is just the norm. I do a show once a month. It's with this guy. I get to work with these guys. All my friends are going to be there. And there's really no impetus and there's really no push, right, to do more or to seek more. And I can...
Well, sacrifices. You're talking about making a sacrifice.
You have to, because at some point you have to double down on yourself. You have to roll the dice and say, hey.
And that sucks.
Take a chance.
I remember he called me to tell me, and he kept wanting to come over to my house. I'm like, why you want to come over for? He's like, oh, can I come over? I was like, no, I don't want. If you're going to quit, just tell me over the phone, bro. I don't want you to tell me you're going to quit, in person. I'll lose it. No, I'm not quitting. And I was like, man. I said, he had just moved close to my house. I helped him move. I was like, oh man, we're gonna hang out. We're gonna go to Starbucks. We're gonna go to dinner. We're gonna be the best of friends. And he's quitting. I was like, son of a gun. And then he tells me, and I was like, God, that sucks. I get emotional. But I was like, fuck, I'm so happy for you because you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. And and I know he looked nervous, and he was like, I don't know, I'm like, no, dude. I go, the moment you get there, bro, you let me know. I'll call the people who I know out there and put you in touch. He said, well, I know a couple people already there. And that was a huge move because Tom had just moved to another house. He had moved out and was starting, another chapter of his life with his wife. And they were getting to get things going. And then, boom, we're moving to Orlando. Insane.
And you moved to Orlando. And with your wife having the scholarship, going to college out there, WWE really not coming back just yet.
I'm a huge Disney nerd, so that was a positive.
Disney buff.
I think that's the real reason why he went to Orlando.
What did you do?
Let's just be freaking upfront. You just moved there. No, check this out. I just told you guys earlier how I flew. He was part of the team. We flew to Oklahoma. So we're flying to Oklahoma, and it's Shannon and I in our seats, and then Tom's behind us. And, we have no sleep, and Tom's all groggy. He's like, I'm going to sleep all the way up there. That's fine, bro, sleep. And then somehow, some way, the woman next to him brought something up about where she was going. And Tom goes, oh, yeah, professional wrestler. We're going to go do something in Oklahoma. She's, oh, well, I'm going to Orlando, blah, 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 for Disney World. Oh, Tom's like, her? Disney World? They spoke the whole freaking flight. and she's going to get married, the honeymoon. Here, I recommend this restaurant, this ride, do this line. There's a secret menu, knock twice on this door and this castle opens. And I was like, Tom, does she know you have a girlfriend? Oh, yeah, I invited her to the wedding. And I'm like, oh, my God. I never knew up until that point how much Disney was a huge influence in Tom's life.
That is true.
He moved to Orlando.
So much so that he moved to Orlando. And didn't you do some work there in the beginning just to
work
kind of
Disney?
get yourself situated? When you
that
moved
was
to
actually
Orlando
the last
time?
job I had before I started my venture with WWE. I was
Jeez,
working.
You've hit the jackpot.
So
twice.
So my life got very complicated for a minute. So I
He's
always
realizing
told
all kinds
myself
of dreams.
My life was going to be one of two things. It was either going to be Disney or WWE, and I had a string of really bad jobs. And I didn't like any of them, and I had applied for Disney over and over and over. And my background, I have a bachelor's degree in film and radio and a minor in kinesiology, but somehow I ended up falling backwards into supply chain management as my career path, right? So I was working at Coca-Cola as a raw materials planner. So in the area, I was the guy that if you picked up a can of Coke, I was the man that ordered the can, the lid, the syrup, the water. I ordered everything that you are now having in your hand. That was my gig for about 8 months. But it was...
Well, I have a Diet Coke in my hand right now, so...
Unless it was from Orlando, I did not help with that one. So during the whole time of not enjoying this career I was having with Coca-Cola, I was still trying to get work with Disney. And then finally, a job opened up that was literally what I was doing, creating purchase orders and working with vendors and stuff. So I ended up getting the job, right? So I said, you know what? If WWE doesn't happen, which I still got in my heart and in my pocket, like hoping it happens, but if it doesn't happen, hey, I got the other career path, right? I'm working with Disney. And so it was an office job. I was working in this beautiful office in a small town called Celebration, which is just right outside of Disney World's gates. And it was amazing. 2 weeks into the job, I get an email about working some live events to help because one of my fellow referees, referee Sean Bennett, he had gotten called up. This was at the time that the WWE decided to do the hard split for Raw and SmackDown, and they needed another ref from the Raw brand. So Sean got the nod, and he went up, and that left a hole because he started pretty much immediately. And they were only running on 2 refs, and they were doing what we call coconut loop, which is Florida shows, and they were doing road loops.
Yeah.
So if 2 went on the road, then they would leave 1 back, and they needed. So I became the filler. So there was a time in my life where I was working my Disney gig from 7 a.m. from 7 a.m. to 3:30, jumping in a car at 5, driving 2 hours sometimes to get to these venues, doing an NXT show, getting back home like at 2 a.m. with no sleep, but I'm booked again the next day, going back to work at Disney at 7, getting up at 3:30, and then doing it again. And I did that for months, and I was like, "What life is this right now?" It was unreal.
Well, he was telling me,
it's the great life.
Tom, are you realizing that you're living the absolute freaking fairy tale? Like no pun intended. You know what I mean? But I'm dying to ask this question. When you were doing the loop, were you late the same way you were your first match?
Surprisingly, Gabe, I was early. I wasn't even on time because
you were there. You were there with the opening the door, right? You were like, "Hey guys, I'm here."
Half hour is always the minimum. If you're on time, you're late.
You're late.
So
absolutely.
No, I was only late when work conflicted with the commute. And
of course,
everybody Oh my
Understood.
God, they were so accommodating.
Wow, how awesome! How awesome!
It was unreal.
You had the support system all the way
That is the
around.
dream.
The support system of your wife, the support
You
system
know,
of your
it's
peers.
when I was inducted into which was humbling because it's bizarre for me to say this, but I was inducted into the NorCal Wrestling Hall of Fame back in November of last year. And the one thing that I kind of threw out there towards the end of my acceptance speech, if you can call it that, that I wish I would have driven home more, that I'm glad I can use this platform right now to elaborate on, is I didn't get here by myself. Nobody gets to where they want to be by themselves. Like it's a support system that you build. We all help each other. And I wouldn't be, as Gabe just illustrated, I wouldn't be sitting in my wife's office having this conversation with you about what I'm doing with my life if I didn't have the support of guys like Gabe, my wife, all the wrestlers who allowed me to be in the ring with them, and all the incredibly knowledgeable talent that I've, crossed paths with in countless locker rooms in the last 20 years. And even to this day, just to be able to learn from the coaches and, I wouldn't be where I am and I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have such an elaborate support system, and I want everybody to know that, don't forget to always thank and give back, because you don't get to where you are by accident. There's people helping you every step of the way. And I never want to forget my roots, and I always make it a point to somehow give back, because I'm so grateful for everything that I really truly had an amazing, support system coming up, and it's unreal to see kind of like where it's gotten me.
And it's unreal to see where it's going to take you. I mean, you start off with a small amount of support system, like you've mentioned Gabe, your wife, but I know that along the way you've picked up a lot more members of that support system. And leading into that, I want to kind of touch on how long after you did these loops did they actually come to WWE? And
so
say,
I
hey,
started
we want you to
filling
be
in
on full time
in late July. And I remember I got 3 dates. And Drake Drake and Sean Bennett and Danilo were kind of the guys that were feeding me my dates. They were going through Coach Bloom. And I did 3 shows because that's what I had. And hold on. Gabe knows this. I'm an emotional dude. And I'll do my best. I remember, so the very last show off that initial 3 bookings I had was in Largo, which is a very good town here, and it draws a great crowd. They're a passionate crowd. They love NXT and the brand. And I showed up that day, and Danilo was the other referee, and he gave me the main event that night. And it was Tino Sabatelli versus Wesley Blake, and I remember just being like, working for WWE was always the goal. And now I'm at a WWE show and I'm refereeing a main event, which to me just didn't seem possible. It didn't seem real. And I did the match, and it was so much fun. And they were so the talent were so good to me. And I remember I came back through the curtain and I instantly started crying.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm kind of doing now. Because I said, man, if I don't go back...
Let it out.
If I just did the last booking, then you know what? I did it.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
And, And so... excuse me. So those 3 became another 2, and then I got a list of them from Drake one day, and there was TV on it, and I was like, full sale. I don't know how to do this, and so I just kept getting these opportunities and I was always thanking everybody, because honest to the good Lord, but I was just so grateful for every little piece of it, and if it ended at any time, I was going to be able to look in the mirror and know that the 12-year-old boy that fell in love with wrestling. He did it, regardless of what happens at this point. I did it, and so it wasn't until I want to say January of 2017 that I was like given this email saying, "Hey, we're gonna hire you," and my whole life just at that point. Like it was just so much to take in because you're always reaching, you're always racing, you're always working towards this goal, and then the goal happens and it doesn't seem like it's real and it doesn't seem like it's possible, and now and my first Drake loves the joke. I had the craziest start date of all time. I started the Monday of WrestleMania week. I was so busy, and Drake was always telling me, like, don't worry, it's not always like this, because, like, we were going hard, like, all day for a week, and, like, then it just, like, then the normal duties came into play, and I was asking him, like, hey, do we do more stuff? He's like, no, man, like that was, you came in at a crazy time. And so, so from like, I don't know, from like late July until mid-January, I was kind of just being booked to help fill in, and then poof, like I got the email, and then I started WrestleMania week, and my first WrestleMania was WrestleMania Orlando, and what a crazy rush that was.
And I remember Gabe calling me and
so
excited that we were going to see you on TV. It was definitely surreal for us because we knew you. I mean, some more than others, and it was just awesome to see one of us actually making it. Now, after you got signed, I imagine that it was just a whirlwind. I mean, you were doing so much. It was so busy. You were getting so much work hand over fist. Those moments that you actually stopped to take it in.
Man.
Can you take me through your feelings there?
No.
I know this meant so much to you, and I don't mean to keep putting you in a emotional situation, but I gotta ask,
That's why he likes Disney so much. He cries at every movie.
They always kill. They kill the parent right away.
Those movies are so
right
sad,
away,
man.
So
I mean,
like, damn it.
There's always
and
something.
you would both be lying if you say to this day that the opening of oh my god, I can't even think of the name of Up doesn't hit you to this day.
Oh, I've never seen it.
First 5 minutes, Gabe. You're gonna
no, I'm just kidding.
You're gonna be.
No, I've seen it.
Oh,
I mean, so is that your favorite Disney movie, Up?
No, I mean, I'm one of those guys where I don't have a favorite because there's different things about different movies that I enjoy so much. I really do like some of the classics. Like, I like.
So, are you more into the animation of old school or the new style with Castor?
I do have an affinity for the hand drawn, and
will you pick a side already?
So, like, the new stuff is great, but if I had to, okay. So if I have to, I am more of an a hand-drawn animation guy. I will tell you that. As far as moments that are like where I had to take or like just those crazy moments. I do remember my first TV. Now I know I wasn't under contract at the time, but so my first match was Aaliyah versus Billie Kay. That was the first match I ever refereed on TV, and I absolutely.
What were your thoughts? TV now, because now you're TV, right? It's a big difference, right?
Unreal, because I've never been a part of something so big and so intricate, and there's so many moving parts, and like the need to be on time and hit times.
How was that earpiece taken care of?
Okay, so it wasn't as bad as I thought, but like it was a generic one, so it kept slipping out of my ear. It wasn't a molded one, so every single time it slid out, I was paranoid I just missed something. But so what Papo was saying, like to this day, like being in the ring and hearing the Iconics music, to this day that song gives me goosebumps. Because it was the first song that like hit me, and I just remember being in the ring and looking straight ahead, and Sharon was there, and boom, this huge production, this music, the Titantron, like it was so much.
Jeez.
And I just remember being like, well, I did it, I'm here, and
your life is a book. someone needs to write the Tom Castor, book, because what you're describing now, Tom, that's literally a movie. It's almost like you can't make
I got
this
a few
shit up.
stories for you that are really weird.
I mean,
so
you know what I mean?
And the other thing about that experience too was Billy and Peyton are two unbelievably talented, caring, warm human beings, and I had such an affinity for them as performers, and that was so cool to be a part of that moment for me on TV, because I was like, wow, like, I'm here, and it's just so crazy. And then I remember doing my first takeover, being War Games, and
wow.
So I did a match
what was that
on TV
like?
between Sanity and the Authors of Pain, and in that segment, Error did a run-in and caused disqualification, which led to the announcement from Commissioner Regal that all this chaos has to end, so he's bringing back War Games. And I still remember him saying it over the microphone, and the sound and then the energy once the crowd took those two words in and was like, wait, War Games? And because here's the thing, War Games was my favorite type of match. I grew up loving War Games, and I was like, man, I can't wait till War Games comes back. And Survivor Series was the very first pay-per-view I ever watched. So you fast forward, I am building or helping to build with my good friend Eddie the two rings for the return of War Games the night before Survivor Series. Like, what are the odds that would happen? Right? So I just remember being there and seeing the cage, above, built. And I'm just thinking that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and it just, and then, so that was a moment that broke my brain. The other one was, Takeover, in New Orleans, where I did Ember Moon and, Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's title.
Oh yeah.
And I remember getting there for rehearsals, and the band, Cypress. No. What's the name of the band? I can't even think of the name right now. I'm sorry. Like, I love the song, but they were performing the theme song live to open up the show, and they were doing the sound check. And I just remember watching like the lights and them hitting their instruments and the video package behind them that was synced up to what they were doing. And I'm like, this is crazy.
This is my job. This
is what I do. And
this is a job. And how does that feel though? Because I mean, a lot of us get up and and through life, and we hate our jobs. And you said it yourself. You had a long list of jobs that just weren't, up your alley. But could you imagine thinking at these, unhappy places, and you end up working not only at Disneyland, but now you're doing television and pay-per-views for things that you had childhood dreams on? Like, at what point do you pinch yourself and go, is this shit really real? How do you handle, getting complacent? Because once you get to that mountaintop, then what? Because the chase is over now. The chase is always exciting. It's when you get to the top, it's like, how do you maintain that chase, that butterfly?
So one of the things that my good friend Daryl Sharma, one of my fellow referees in NXT, the Hornet. We always joke that when we sign our contracts, we're retired. I feel like I don't work. Like, some days are longer than others, and some things are more strenuous, but I am truly, truly thankful, and I'm so blessed to do what I love and what I'm passionate about and what I've always been passionate about. And I understand that puts me in a category of people that, it makes me lucky. And I don't ever lose sight of that. And I don't ever not appreciate it. And I always tell my wife,
don't wake me up.
It's unreal that we're able to do the things we are. And because I remember a time when I couldn't even buy my wife jeans, and that as a husband, oh man, that broke me in half. Like I'm supposed to take care of my wife and get her jeans, and that always stuck with me. Not being able to do that one thing for my wife and promising that I would take care of her. So, when do I pinch myself? I did it today. Like this never gets old and it never gets normal, and it's always a blessing. And I love what I do, and I love the people I work with. And as far as, maybe the quote chase is over because I'm with the company that I always dreamt of being with. But the new chase is to always learn more and to always be better and to always be there for the talent and to always be, work more closely with my producers. It's always to be more, or, hey, right now, like I want to learn, the lighting, or I want to learn the music board, or I want to do more at the live event. And, there's always,
you're making yourself more useful to the company. I mean, you're making yourself,
it's always good to learn other things, because there's some situations like, what if, we got a coconut show in Largo, and there's a bad traffic jam, and now 6 cars of talent aren't able to get to the venue on time. I got to figure out how to do other things. You know what I mean?
Would you dust off the boots and jump in there and wrestle?
The last time you guys,
inquiry minds want to know.
It didn't go that great for me. So, no, it didn't go the best. So, but no,
didn't feel that good. So, hey, Tom, speaking of which, we're talking about, living the dream. I mean, you're definitely living the dream. You achieved everything that you set out for yourself, and the chase isn't over. But along the way, you definitely run into roadblocks, and we all do. And forgive me if I get the date wrong, but I believe I have it right. April 25th, 2019. That was a huge roadblock for you, right? Take me through that day and kind of give us a little bit of insight on how
that was
tough it was to get back on track to a road to recovery.
Ref bumps are a thing, and we've all done them. And in my career, I've done plenty, and I've taken plenty of super kicks. And it's just one night, one thing goes wrong, and poof, I break my leg. And in the moment, I knew it was not good. I didn't know in my brain how bad it was because I purposely didn't look at it. Like, I remember grabbing my chin and being like, oh no, like this is bad. And then I didn't look at it, but then I looked in the front row, and the faces people were making these faces, and I'm like, oh no, maybe this is bad, right? So yeah.
Don't look down. Don't look down.
I got when I got into the ambulance that I decided to have the medic. I said, hey, do me a favor and take a picture of it. I don't want to look at it. Just take a picture of it so I can kind of go back and see it later. And then when we got to the ER that night, they had to cut everything off and get to it. And that's when I saw it. And I was like, oh, no, it's bad. It's bad. But what's so funny is, like, you go through, like, there's levels of, like, denial, apparently. Wow. And I went through all stages within, like, 30 seconds. So I hit
it's not that bad.
And I rolled over. And in my head, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be good for tomorrow. Because it was night 1 of a 4-day road loop. And I was, like, really looking forward to going to Minnesota. So I was like, I hit the 3 and I'm thinking, man, I'll just walk this off. Like,
yeah, like some tiger, anyone has some tiger bomb? I'll be good. Just give me some tiger bomb. We'll be good.
Just rub some dirt on it. Let's just get to the back.
Throw some dirt on it.
And we'll call it a night. But and I just realized, I'm not going to walk for a while. And so, I went to the ER and they had to set it for me. So they had to pump me through some drugs because they had to set it really fast because the swelling was becoming so bad.
Wait, that moment, not non-surgical?
No, they had to align it, so they had to straighten it because it was fixed, right? Because I broke both sides of my ankle and I did a full dislocation.
So you do everything big, right?
Yeah.
You do breaking bones big. You do your dreams big. You do everything big.
That was 10 months to the day.
How long was that road to recovery? How long
was that?
Was that more or less than what the doctors were giving you as far as recovery?
The flow went like this. I went to the ER that night, and they had to fix it up. They had to align it, but the swelling was getting so bad that they were afraid that my bone eventually pierced through, which would result in immediate surgery. And they're like, hey, like, we're pretty sure they're going to want to send you somewhere, so we're going to have to just get you under. We're going to yank on it. We're going to set it. We're going to wrap you up in a splint, and we're going to send you home the next day. And so they did all that. Luckily, I was completely knocked out, didn't feel any of it. Because, like, that was the one thought in the ambulance, right? I was like, oh, man, they're going to have to put this back. and it hurt the first time. I don't want to feel it again. So then the next morning, I flew back to Orlando, and man, like, I'm so thankful to WWE for taking unreal care of me and sending me to the absolute best doctors. I will never be able to thank them enough, and I will never be able to give them enough back to truly show my appreciation, because.
So were you going to their doctors and you were paying for it?
No, WWE took care of me the whole time, so I didn't have to worry about anything. And so they sent me to the St. Andrews over in Alabama, where Dr. James Andrews' clinic is, and they took care of me. I had never had surgery in my life. I'd never broken anything in my life. Like, think about this, gentlemen. I was a referee for 19 years and never got hurt. Like, knock on wood, but, like, I kind of, like, at some point it should have happened, and it was going to happen at some point. It was that night. And so went there, and I never had a surgery, and like, I went there thinking, like, the first day would be, like, the initial, consultation, and then I would go back the next day for the surgery, and we went in, and a doctor came in, and he looked at my ankle. He's like, "Oh, they did a really good job wrapping it. All right, let's go ahead and get him ready for surgery." I was like now, like today, I'm not ready, And so I like panicked. My wife told me I was so scared because I was like, I don't want to do this. And so they fixed me up, and I was in the hospital there for like 2 days. Flew back home, and then I went from 2 weeks in a splint, flew back, 2 weeks in a cast, flew back, and then was in my walking boot. And I broke it in April, and I think I started my first day of therapy in June. And man, it was such a humbling experience because, I was 41 at the time, or I was 40, about to turn 41 a week later when I broke it. And, living your life, doing everything for granted, like running, going upstairs, just doing your daily tasks and never having to be hindered by anything, right? Or, have anything taken away. And man, like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even use the restroom by myself. Like, it was like I was chopped down, and that was hard. It was hard not to do my daily things that I did all the time without thinking about them. And it was rough. And I could tell you, up until the point that I started therapy, to see those progressions and those progresses within your recovery, I don't know if either of you had a very substantial injury, but when you're alone on the couch, you can't move, you can't do anything. Your mind starts to go in very dark places, and you start to hit this depression wall. And luckily for me, Tommaso Ciampa, who's another amazing human being, he reached out to me and he told me, like, "Hey man, you're gonna have thoughts, and just so you know, those are normal. You're not weird. It's not uncommon. Like, just know that it's gonna get better." And he was absolutely right, man, because you start to have all these what ifs, right? What if I could never come back? Or what if I'm not as good? Or what if, just all these what ifs.
Someone takes my spot,
ifs,
when
right?
I'm out, they found a better ref, it took over my spot.
And it was just
very common.
It was just a lot to take in. But then I started therapy in June, and you literally take baby steps. Like I didn't walk for like the first month, and even then it was with 2 crutches and then one crutch, but only like 20% weight on the bad leg, and then graduating to starting to walk a little bit more on both, and then you take the crutch away, and then you got to learn how to jump again. I literally had to learn how to walk again, how to jump again, and how to run again.
But the thing is, you're not only are you trying to get back to a normal life where you can just walk and go to the park with your wife again, you're training to go back into a competitive mode of life, right? So, I mean, that has to also crawl into your mind thinking,
as good.
Man, am I going to be
that was one of my
good?
biggest concerns. What if I can't do it? What if I can't get up off that mat? What if I can't get down? Because the company deserves the best, and if I'm not able to perform to a certain standard, do I belong there? And so it was
right. But as we know, I mean, you overcame that. I mean, 10 minutes. 10 months of hell for one day of heaven.
It was
right?
a surreal
day
day
of heaven when you came back. I mean, how did that feel?
Was
being back in the ring.
A day that I had dreamt about, and you get to a point in your therapy where the bad thoughts just drop out, because you are becoming the version of yourself that you remember, right? And so the longer it went, the more I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do it,
Yeah.
WWE has a very specific set of protocols that I have to do before I am cleared to get back to work. The doctor who performed the surgery cleared me before WWE, because he's saying you're good to go back and do stuff, like regular stuff. But WWE is like, hey, you're going to be performing in a ring, and we got to make sure you're ready. And thank the Lord for that, because I remember when I started to train the ring again, I had already been cleared, but when you get in the ring, it's an uneven surface, it's soft, people are moving, it's not flat, right? It's not just a hard surface like cement. And I just remember like, oh, that's different. like you forget the feeling, right? But through great therapy, a woman took the entire medical team at the Performance Center, CJ and Christian and Lauren and Tara, who Tara was like my go-to girl, who really took care of me the most time, and she was the one who kind of put me back together again with everybody else's help and input. But Tara was the one that was with me in the gym and encouraging me and pushing me and being my therapist sometimes, because some days you hit therapy would go great, and then you have a really bad day and you're like, damn it, like what's going on? Am I ever going to get over this hump? She was there for me, and she got me, and then she was there for me when I went back in the ring and started shuffling around, and then she was there for me when she would throw 2 people in there. We would just kind of not do a match, but just move around for 5 minutes, and then it was a practice match, and then it was a 5-minute match, and so by the time I was ready to go back, like I was ready, because in my mind I was like, okay, well, if anything bad's gonna happen now, I'd rather just have it happen in the ring again. Like, let's just go back to work and see what happens, because I'm itchy. I get itchy, like that 10 months was the longest stint of time that I was not in a ring. So like I was just missing it so much. I missed the team. I missed my friends. I wanted to be back with everybody. So
yeah, I remember I sent Tom books, movies, so he would maintain busy, because I know he was going stir crazy at home. I was like, let me send him I forgot what I sent you. I know I sent you a book and and a movie to watch. Just because, like, I talk to you, I can just hear the frustration in your voice, going, "Oh my God, I can't do this no more." But with that being said, if this would have been it, would you still would have been happy with your career?
I mean, how could
there?
you not? I absolutely was okay with, if this was it, then hey, man, like I still fulfilled my life's dream, and no matter how long or short, it's irrelevant to me. Just being here, being part of this team, being part of a team like this is just, it's worth it. And I'm okay with whenever it is time,
Wow. Yeah, so just, I know we don't have a lot of time left. I want to tell a story, and I want to segue into my last question. I don't know. I can't remember what year it was. I was working construction, and I posted a picture on Facebook, and it was me in my hard hat, my construction stuff. I get a call. I get a message from Tom, and Tom says, "Hey, Papo, here's my number. Can you call me real quick?" I said, "Sure." I call him, and he says, "Hey, Papo, we all got work. We're all, trying to make it, but I don't want my Papo Esco to be on the same level as fans." And you said, try not to post these things about you working real jobs, and just try to give yourself more of a presence of a public figure or an athlete or a celebrity, so that you can, be looked at as, a future star or what have you. My question is I want to see if you can maybe end this by giving some kind of advice like you gave me to the people that are listening, all the incoming workers that want to be a referee or a manager or a wrestler. What type of advice would you give them to be able to have a chance to have the phenomenal ride that you had from beginning to now?
In 10 words, or less.
I would really, if I could have moved out of the area and made myself uncomfortable sooner, I wonder what would have happened. Because taking that risk and being uncomfortable, it makes you grow. If being with WWE is one of your goals, then I would say, try to work with as many different people as you can, and don't be so rooted in one area, because what you're doing is you're having good matches, but you're having good matches with the people and you've had 700 matches with. It's different if you were to go out, venture out, and do matches with people who you don't know and or who are better than you, kind of like what we touched upon earlier, to push you to be more, and the more you leave whatever area you're kind of breaking into the business, the more reach you go to in the other places you work, the network of people grows, and those people may end up somewhere and may be able to help you get there. So you really got to take a chance on yourself. You really have to believe in your ability, and you need to go out and experience other things than just what's comfortable, right? Because one of the things, that I really believe helped me was that crazy, hey, let's move to Orlando, and if I hadn't, would the opportunity still have come my way as it did when I was here? Probably not. I was putting myself in a situation where if there was something for me, I'm not letting them say no. So I would say, so if I could leave it with that, then yes, please, this is what you want to do, this is what you aspire to be, then you have to take a chance on yourself, and you have to work outside of your area. That's only going to allow you to grow. It's only going to make you better, and it's only going to push you to be more and to strive for more. And like I said, the networking that you'll get out of it will pay for itself. And then just know that if all that networking and all that, doing things allows you and opens doors for you, then you do it for those behind you, because you always have to give back. You always have to help, because like I said, Lord knows I would not be where I am if it wasn't for the kindness of so many people who helped me along the way, who coached me up, and who allowed me to come through their door and contribute the way I can.
Wow, that's amazing. That is a great way to end this.
No, I look up to you because I'm only 5'4".
I know for me, I look up to you. I know a lot of the guys that. Yeah,
I was thinking it too. I was like, should I say it? But now I'm gonna be the asshole.
I could speak for all of us. Everybody at Pro Wrestling Revolution, the Training Academy, we all look up to you. We all think of you as a fairy tale. You definitely did it, and you did it the right way. And I truly appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I truly appreciate you giving us this opportunity exclusively for the first time to hear your story. But that's our time, man. I know.
Yeah, because there's tons of stuff we didn't talk about. Like,
always hates this part.
Yeah, I want to talk to Tom, his favorite role in Alexander's story, his favorite rib.
That sounds good.
Yep, I hear you. We'll leave that. We'll leave that for another time. But before we go, as always, we want to make sure you get your social media.
It's just on Twitter and Instagram. Right Tom Castor WWE on both. I like to post pictures of Disney toys and wrestling on my Instagram. So it's basically all you're gonna get. But I enjoy it. If there's one thing you should all know about me before we go, is I am a huge horror movie fan, like fanatic. Yes. I'm super into vintage toys, mostly 80s toys, and I'm a huge collector of wrestling things. And I enjoy Disney from every continent and every state in the U.S. So I'm a Disney guy, a horror movie guy, and a toy guy.
Social media across the board,
Ramirez,
PW Revolution across all social media. And at the same time, if you guys don't mind taking a little trip over to www.lucha-masks.com and pick up your PPE Lucha mask, so if you have to wear that mask like a lot of us do, why not look super cool in them, So head on over. I know a lot of folks in the Orlando area have picked some up. Hopefully he sends a pic and puts it on his Instagram so I can see it, Tom. And
but yes, go to luchamask.com. They're amazing. I got my Ultimo Dragon mask in yesterday, and it's beautiful. It is so freaking amazing. Good on you for doing this, and I'm going to have to order a few more because there's a couple that I know that are in the pipeline that need to be in my possession.
Yes, and I'll send you an image. It just got finished today, and I'll send it to you so you can take a look. But yeah, I tell Tom all the inside stuff because he's, he shares all his inside stuff with Disney with me as well. So there will be an Incredible 7. So you heard it here first.
They're skipping 3 through 6 and going straight.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the grappler, 1, 4, 7. You skip them so people go on their toes. You know what I mean? But I do want to say thank you, Tom. I want to say thank you for always being the same podcaster that I met 20 years ago. You really haven't changed. You're the same awesome person. You haven't changed with all success and failures and everything. You've always maintained to be the same genuine person. And that is a huge accomplishment to say to you as a person, let alone to your accomplishments in your career. But as a person, you are one of a kind, very few people that I have the rapport with like I do with you, just because you're a great guy and you're a great friend, you're a great brother. And I appreciate that you've always given back, because you've always given back to me, even when you don't have to. And I appreciate you always consider me a friend and a brother through all these years. And I can't thank you enough. And hopefully we can maintain this friendship as long as we can. And if you don't give me WrestleMania tickets, I will hold it against you.
I will hold it against you. And on that note, guys, we're out of here.
You.
On behalf of the podcast, Tom Castor, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk to you soon. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you. And that right there, mi gente, is all she wrote. What a great interview. I mean, the conviction, the passion, the emotion in his voice as he's telling his story. Tom Castor's a guy that said, I have a dream. I'm going to chase down that dream. And ain't nothing or nobody going to stop me in my journey. And you know what? He caught it. He's living that life right now. And I'm proud of him. I'm also proud and humbled to say that we are the first podcast to bring you Tom Castor's story. That story needs to be told, and I hope he goes on other podcasts and tells that story again and again. And if not, come on back to this episode of Straight Out of the Bodega and listen to it again and again. Everything he's saying are really the building blocks for everybody that is an up-and-coming talent, whether you're a wrestler, a manager, or a referee. He's telling you, if you have a dream, put the work in, don't give up, and you will win. Well, that's all we got time for today. Join us next week when we have AEW's Jungle Boy Jack Perry on. That should be a fun one. Before you leave, check out our social medias. Instagram, Straight Out of the Bodega. Facebook, Straight Out of the Bodega. Twitter, at STR8OUTDABODEGA. I love that at now. Also, check me out, Papo Esco, on all forms of social media. Instagram, Papo Esco. Facebook, Papo Esco. Snapchat, Papo Esco. Twitter, Papo_Esco. On behalf of the podcast, I am your master of ceremonies, the King FatBoy Papo Esco. Thank you once again for pulling up, but we are out.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Masked Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to Lucha-Masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at Lucha-Masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.